and welcome to the Strategic Risk Mind podcast. I'm Joe Anderson, your host, and we are joined today with Cheryl Snapp Conner.
Hi.
From Snapp Conner PR. She is the CEO and founder, and she also created a university called Content University with Snapp Conner PR, where she trains people on how to be able to just accelerate their communication skills.
Yes.
So I love that. She's a nationally renowned speaker and author and columnist, so we're really excited about that. And she works with the Board of Advisors organization, and she was named one of the top 20 entrepreneurs for 2025. So pretty amazing to have Cheryl here with us. Some other things that she's done, just to give you an idea, she works with Forbes as a PR and business communications expert, has contributed to Wall Street Journal, and is a regular contributor to Inc. magazine. So, Cheryl, we're really excited to have you today.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about some of the things you do outside of work, some of your passions.
Oh, well, I'm a fitness and health advocate, so
Okay.
I love that. And
Yeah.
In fact, I've become a real fan of Pure Barre.
Oh,
I go
wow.
to the Eagle studio pretty much every day.
Awesome.
So they know me. If I ever have to miss, my friends ask if they send out an ambulance. And,
Yeah,
you know,
I love that.
so I love that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, you have such an interesting firm because you're dealing with PR strategy, but you guys also accelerate and kind of are experts in crisis communications,
We are.
which is such a need in our society.
Huge.
Communications, I think, has just been multiplied and blown up because of all the online and social media. And so it just gets front and center. And it's really interesting to watch how things can blow up in that space. And I think it's fascinating. So what do you think some of the contributors are to the challenges in communications these days? What, just off the top of your head?
Oh, well, there are so many, but I guess if I had to sum it up, the fact that communication can happen at the speed of AI. It can be instant, and anything that you say, if it's latched onto, and especially if it has any tinge of scandal or controversy to it, it will spread like wildfire. For example, I was at an event where Halle Berry was interviewed, and on stage she did say something about something about having been previously married. And the press picked it up and it went like wildfire. Something about she regrets marrying whoever that husband was. Only one of the major channels called me to even confirm that she actually said it.
That's crazy.
And it was one sentence pulled out of an lengthy interview. But that didn't cause anybody, maybe a little bit of roll your eyes.
Yeah.
But if that were, say, your board member who does something that is deemed a political misstep,
Yeah.
It could take down a company. Somebody who happened to be present during the
Nice.
January 6th thing.
It happened so quickly.
Yeah.
And, it's just like, and sometimes you didn't even intend for that to be, or it could just be they took what you said out of context.
Right.
Or even, worst case scenario, edited it sometimes.
Yeah,
And
sometimes.
it's fascinating.
It can go for good or bad. Sometimes it's a blessing or ideally it would be a blessing if you can just say, what did that just open up for me? The floodlights on me. What should I do with it?
Yeah. And sometimes it's that perspective of having somebody that's an expert in communications and crisis communications, kind of thinking about, okay, what opportunities are here too, right? Because there is some downfall, but there can be some opportunities.
And to have an expert who's removed from it, no matter who you are, your emotions are going to be sky high when that moment happens, and you're not going to be your best advocate. You're going to be, it's everything.
We were just kind of going through that kind of an experience yesterday with our threat simulator that we did on supply chain with the Boise Chamber. And we had 3 teams, and, all of a sudden this happens and they're the executives and they get brought into this crisis or disaster. And they have to try to figure out what they're going to do. And it was really interesting because we also inserted some breaking news flashes where the situation changed. Something now is different. And
that's pretty true to life.
It really worked. I mean, it was interesting to watch the groups. And, what we found when they did their report back to the team, the whole group, the teams did, was that at the top was setting up a communication strategy, identifying who their point person was, some of these things. And I just thought, that is right up Cheryl's alley.
Yeah.
That's you preach that all the time. So maybe tell our listeners a little bit about what are some of the important crisis communication steps that a company can take ahead of time to be prepared in a disaster.
Sure. Well, there are two, and they're both preventative. So this would put anybody in a far better situation when that situation occurs. And to some level, things will happen. They could be big ones, they could be moderate ones, but just these simple steps. The first would be every hire that you make sure they are on a signed employee contract. And that employee contract makes clear what needs to be ratified in terms of non-disclosure, non-competitive, and so if people know that they are not authorized to speak on behalf of the company and that there's non-disclosure, non-disparagement clauses in effect. In fact, the Theranos situation, the big kindling on that fire was that the former senior vice president had not been signed to any agreement and was free to do anything that he chose.
Goodness.
And when someone is in a bit of a retaliatory mindset to begin with, look out. It's like facing a firing squad.
That's right.
So there's that. So people should understand the policy, and there should be one. But also, you need to create a crisis plan. And those two go together hand in glove, because the policy will say who speaks on behalf of the company, what is the process. And in that crisis plan, we would determine if something happens, and that could be anything ranging from good news to a big deal closes to there's an accident on site. Who needs to be notified and in what order?
Yeah.
And that's going to start with the board, the leadership team, your partners, your employees. And if you go down that list, any of those people, if they learn about it from the press before they hear about it from you, you've instantly got a magnified crisis.
Yeah.
Even if, in worst cases, in a space of 30 minutes, all of that could happen. But the sequence is set down, and you've also got the emergency contact information for, of course, the CEO and the members of the board. But whatever you do as general policy, you would continue to follow. For example, if the CEO makes all company statements, you would suddenly shift that unless it was by the CEO's authorization because they were unavailable. But all of that spelled out, and then the general guidance rules that are we publicly traded or why we be becoming publicly traded. Let's follow the same rules anyway, that nothing that we say can create a legal situation. You've got to contact, besides the spokesperson, your attorney and your PR, your comms lead. And what happens then is those two individuals hand in glove to make certain that we're not inadvertently saying something that we don't yet know for fact, or that could make a situation worse, or that could introduce liability that isn't appropriate.
I love that. One of the things you touched on was kind of having a plan about who's speaking and what they're going to say.
Yes.
And it reminded me, as we've talked, you do kind of a company spokesperson training.
We do.
And it was fascinating yesterday watching this because we talked about, one team said having a specific plan for what's said and who says it, and a lot of them just said communicate. Well, when you tell people to communicate, everyone interprets that differently. And I thought it would be interesting to ask you, what are some examples of the different ways that people respond in a crisis from a communication standpoint that are good and maybe not so good? Because we make this assumption that everybody will communicate like we think, and we do, but it's really not true. Everyone has a different perspective and a different way of handling things.
And there are an awful lot of constituents you're speaking to when that happens.
Yeah. So what are some of the things you've seen out there when people are, responding to a crisis that, is good or not so good?
Sure. Well, generally the problems occur when you do one of two things, and these are pretty prevalent, that you either jump to make a statement immediately without all the facts, without everything in a row, or you just go into hiding. Either one is definitely going to just exponentially increase the situation that you face. So you want to respond quickly. And if you don't have a statement yet, just, we're aware. Thank you. I'll make certain you are one of the first to know how this comes out. We're going to be back so quickly, and give a time frame. for when you can be back, and make certain people know that's because I must make certain we are giving you the right information.
Yeah, and I love what you're doing with the coaching, because practice helps people get out of that fight or flight instinct.
Sure.
Or some sort of, drilling, right?
Yes.
And it gets them to think and to be able to do things almost automatically.
Yes.
And when we can get into that automated thing with exercise, you mentioned kind of that muscle memory.
Yes.
When we can get that on the communication side in a crisis, that's way better usually than just whatever's at the top of your head.
Well, and another thing that's really beneficial, and we've used this time and time again, is when you make a company statement, make it once and in writing. Put it up on whatever platform, Facebook, LinkedIn, or all three simultaneously, but one consistent statement. So all the world has been given the same information at the same time. If you say that out loud or on a phone call or just, from a microphone, you'll be plied with follow-up questions that you may or may not be able to handle.
That's such a good point, because I know in sales, because I have a lot of sales training from my background in brokerage, insurance brokerage, and it was always really important for us to reinforce what the most important kind of decision points were throughout the meeting, because what we found is at the end of the meeting, the client would attach to those and they'd become their ideas.
Yes.
And in a similar way, I see that with what you're talking about. If all the people involved in the company, whether it's talking to clients or employees or the press, they all have a similar message. You start training them that this is the message.
And they could share what is posted. And that's how we invite and instruct people to get involved, is whatever the company has publicly posted, please share it with our blessing freely. And then you can be very certain you're not going to be misunderstood. You're not going to be taking it off track in any way, that's appropriate. If you help guide people to what the company has published. Yes. Or if they've said, we've published this statement, we're going to post an update on when, let that be known. That's the most helpful thing that you can do. You can imagine if a reporter's standing there and saying, you just had an accident on site, what happened? Well, oh my gosh, you're describing all of this. That introduces all kinds of new fears.
Yeah. Are they prepared? Do they have a plan? Yeah, all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Who is this person that's representing them? They don't have any confidence. Yeah.
And it's just a bystander.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So you have worked with a lot of, excuse me, you've worked with a lot of companies over time, and you've seen some, let's call them star players,
right,
that have just killed it.
Yes.
And then you've seen some that have kind of stubbed their toe a few times.
Yes.
So give us a couple examples of that, if you don't mind.
Well, I think one of the examples it's gone down in history, it's been such a good one, and it's Johnson & Johnson, when there was the Tylenol situation, the cyanide crisis, that they answered quickly, but they did so with empathy. So they did an immediate nationwide recall. They put public safety first, and it was evident that they put public safety first. Where others that have stepped forward have been too much like trying to backtrack, protect themselves, cover their assets.
Minimize the problem, maybe.
Correct.
Yeah.
They communicated visibly, they were completely transparent about it, and then they very quickly introduced tamper-proof packaging.
Wow.
So they prioritized people over the query numbers, and it stood the test of time. That is, as much as a tragic situation can be a win, it was a communications win that they handled it so well.
Oh, wow. That's pretty incredible. Yeah. What else comes to mind?
Well, other good examples, Delta Airlines and the CrowdStrike damage response. Widespread disruption, but they maintained continuous communication. They treated the event like an operational leadership challenge rather than, oh, oops, bad PR issue. So communication is leadership, and it stayed with the leadership, and they did a very good job. Microsoft, during the Satya Nadella leadership era, communicated quite well. Shifted the company from defensive and siloed to collaborative and adaptive. It was so fun to hate Microsoft for a long time, and maybe in some respects some of us still do. But I fight with Outlook every morning, and it doesn't play well with anything else. And well.
But their stuff's kind of the best available sometimes.
Right.
They switch it, and you're like, okay.
And they communicate far better than they used to. In bad examples, well, one that I was personally privy to because I was communications lead at the time it happened. Novell, big tech company in Utah.
Yeah.
Because they went public, anyone who wanted to was allowed to attend their public meetings.
Okay.
And did. They would fly in from Business Week, from Bloomberg, from everywhere. Mm-hmm. Anything that gets said in that public meeting. So several things happened. One of the key programmers, a reporter walked through, had a nice conversation with him, took his business card, and next morning, I dropped him off at the hotel, breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, phew, everything's covered, went to sleep. The next morning, I get a call. And it was that programmer. He said, Cheryl, I've got PC Week on the line. Well, he didn't say they've got it on the line. He said, the reporter is asking me these questions. And in my sleep, I just said, now what? What hasn't he tried? He was on the line. It was a 3-way call.
Oh my goodness.
It was fine. It was a reporter that we jokingly called Columbo. He was used to it. He thrived on it.
Yeah.
He did nonplussed, but still, it was embarrassing for me.
Yeah, because you didn't know he's on the line, maybe. Yeah.
Always know who you're speaking to, who else is on the line, and be careful that anything you say could become a headline. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, that didn't. But if you said something like, oh my crap, what just happened? That could be a headline. Mm-hmm. And you only meant it as the first thing you said when that reporter got on to the line. So that can be tricky. We also, somebody flew in wanting to see Ray Norda, our CEO, and he was unexpected, was in the lobby, and we were trying to find Ray, and he'd been delayed on a flight. Something had happened and wasn't able to see him. Finally, when he was located and sat down, he did a similar thing. He just said, oh my goodness, my travel is so scary lately. I have to write a note on the hotel nightstand to remind myself which city I'm in when I wake up the next morning. Well, that got translated to developing a mental deficit, what's happening, stock drop. That much can be read into something. And that was even before the days of internet, actually.
Yeah. And we've had some of those locally too. We've had an executive officer make a comment at a party that got misinterpreted. And the response plan to that, or you have, we had a large accident at the airport on a building.
Oh, yes.
Had some fatalities. I was just thinking recently, the whole school system had a cyber attack right before finals this last semester, and they couldn't administer finals. Really interesting kind of recent scenarios. And so these things crop up, and it's like, if you've never dealt with them before, or you don't have a plan, all you can do is knee jerk, and the knee jerk usually is not
going to be good. You need to have independent. You need to have your legal support and communication support present.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting.
And maybe even I've gone on the air speaking on behalf of companies before that it just would not have gone well if they'd stood up for themselves.
Yep. I mean, one example from my past is we had an act of violence on a property that I was on, and we brought in a PR person, and it made a big difference because they were monitoring the news feeds. They were kind of trying to get in front of the situation and helped us figure out how do we position things to where people aren't just going to react to this terrible tragedy and blame us for it. Right. And when it really wasn't our fault, we did everything we could, the company did that I was working with. But it was fascinating to watch that part of it. And it kind of opened my eyes up to, hey, there's a whole piece here of management that sometimes we ignore to our detriment. And it's useful. And so a lot of companies can add coverage into their insurance coverage for crisis response, reputation risk, and some of those things.
Very good point.
And it's worth considering because you make a small contribution over a number of years, and then once something happens, now you're not just totally without any funding for this, right? Because it can be expensive.
It can. Well, we charge extra rates, not to be opportunistic, but it's going to be 24/7 life in the blender.
Yeah.
Trying to solve something like that. So it's not something you can just get on the schedule and do. But I will bring up another point that there is such good reason to have at least some level of PR and visibility present before anything happens, because there is going to be a period of time when you can't speak yet, that whatever exists that is out, that the AI engines will find, that Google will find about you, is what people are going to know about you. And if you've been a solid operator and that's known, your customers have verified that, people will expect that you're going to work this through, and it's going to, you'll be in a lot better situation when a bad news day happens. If that foundation exists.
And that kind of speaks to that foundation of community service, the trust, reputation you have in the community. Some of those things, because it's very tough if you built that for somebody to come in and then present a totally different picture.
Exactly. If you are on the record for who you genuinely are as a company, even as an executive, that will work to your benefit, particularly if there's anything where legal actions are required. It's best to, at that point, let that aspect of the statement be that it needs to be worked out in the legal system.
I love it.
And in fact, you might be forbidden from saying anything, which means a little bit of open season.
Yeah, and I think, we can't control everything, but the things we can control and the things we can prepare for, we might as well.
Yes.
And we might as well try to set things up to where we have the best opportunity to also take care of people. And I think that's with the Johnson & Johnson example you mentioned. There was a heart, a caring there that they exhibited that was really important.
It was genuine.
People see that.
Yes.
And so what does it look like to be genuine, to care, to kind of really think about how do I respond in that way, but also be smart in the way that you articulate it. Really cool stuff. So, if the worst has happened or a person or company faces public downfall, can they ever really fully recover? Tell us about how that works.
Sometimes.
Okay.
In fact, if they act wisely most of the time, that another day will come, and even worst come to absolute worst, if there were maybe some good reasons some of the downfall happened, and if people can learn and grow and come back later, they could. I just read something just yesterday that the actor Will Smith is now a lead actor in another leading movie that is going to come out, and the headline reads, "Has the world forgiven him that Oscars night slap?" That's taken several years. How many years? 3 years?
Yeah, and you have another gentleman that was involved in a shooting, right?
Right.
Actor, and he's on movies still. And not that that's bad or good, it's just interesting. These do pass, right? Yeah.
Most of the time. One example that, it's maybe one of the worst examples I've ever seen, ever, is that whole Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni lawsuits back and forth over a 2-year period. It did not need to happen. And one reason that is particularly painful for me to see is that it got started by the PR agents. That, I've been there. I had a situation one time where an employee was doing things under the table that were inappropriate. It was discovered. They broke non-compete. They went to a competing agency and were over Skype stealing things off of our server, groomed our junior person to do the work for the new agency. We landed upon, the individual had stripped his computer clean when he handed it in, which was kind of a clue. So it was kind of one of those, this is one of those people that the right seat on the bus was with our biggest competitor for hopefully a high price. Because it's better that he's not here. But how to react to that, I was so sorely tempted to publish, make known. I was thinking about Jerry Maguire style, making up a copy of that whole situation and passing it to every employee of the other agency that he'd gone to. I didn't. And it got solved quietly and resolved. So, thankfully it was resolved. But this situation, the individual's phone was seized. But then beyond what was needed to demonstrate the betrayal and the breaking of contract, that information was leaked to Blake Lively's team, and they were so enraged, scared, went berserk.
Yeah, and those kind of things, it speaks to your culture a little bit too, right? A company culture. So, some employees are frustrated or upset, and they want to lash out. And they leak stuff, and it's like, okay, how do we build that right culture? So that has a piece in the communications. How do you engage with your employees? How do you build team camaraderie and relationships? Because that'll make a difference, it sounds like, when a crisis happens.
And it's sad. I think that the actor involved, Blake Lively, I don't know if she'll ever recover. So that was pretty vast, deep, and bad.
Yeah.
Or maybe she will have to take on a different kind of a role. But the PR people, if they're effective PR people, both people involved will probably live to see another day. But I have to shake my head. That was just poorly done on all fronts.
Yeah, it's sad to watch. So, when you have a reputation risk, when something happens,
right?
What are the first few things that person should do?
Yeah. Well, take a breath.
Okay.
Call your PR lead and your legal counsel.
Yeah.
And since you've got that communications plan in place, then cooler heads can help you map out.
Yeah.
And that would be an instant brainstorm meeting where we just kind of whiteboard, okay, what are our options? And a big one that a lot of people don't consider, and I force them to walk through, is what if we do nothing? Is that our best move? If we let this thing cool down for 6 hours, then let's assess what we need to do next.
Sometimes you battle messaging.
Yes.
And people do that all the time on Facebook and text and stuff. And it's like, at some point, maybe there's a choice where you just do the right thing and say the right thing and focus on the right thing and let that other stuff just kind of fall by the way.
Fall by the way, and then decide at that point, if that occurrence was contrary to our culture, our character, what can we do to rebuild trust we lost in that? Let's think about it through that lens instead of, oh my gosh, how could I unmake this happen? I can't. And what is the best way that, having cooler heads, a night's sleep.
Yeah.
And then I've discovered this even when somebody says something really mean to you. Step back and what I will do immediately is, what is the most noble possible reason they could have for asking me that question or saying that thing? Like somebody who just, how much money do you make?
Yeah.
And think of a response. Thanks for your concern. I'm doing fine.
That's really good. Yeah. And just kind of divert or change some things. One thing, as we kind of close here, one thing I want that kind of was a theme here that I kind of picked out as you were talking was empathy.
Yes.
And I was thinking about, that you talked about letting cooler heads prevail. And what happens in that process sometimes is we start putting ourselves in other people's shoes. And we start going, okay, why did this person respond this way? Or why did this happen? Or what are some of the possibilities? And you start gaining empathy.
Right.
And then you start thinking about, okay, well, how can I be empathetic in my response instead of attacking or instead of being mad or whatever it is? And I just thought that was a really great point, Cheryl. So as we kind of close here, maybe talk a little bit more about how you use empathy in your job and with the people that you work with and why that's such an important skill.
Well, the first part is when we first message a company, we force everybody to consider who are all of our constituents. It's not just our prospective customers. It could be our community, our civic people. It could be the regulators. It's your competitors.
Yeah.
It's your employees. It's your future employees. When we consider all those facets, when we message something, how is it really positioned and going to be received by all of these interests?
Yeah.
So make certain that we're pre-answering anything that we need to ease the concerns for all of those people the best that we can. But then when somebody goes to us, they may be flaming mad, but that they're not acting then, they're reacting. But our opportunity is to say, what is it that they're afraid of? What is behind that allegation?
What's the fear? Yeah.
What is the fear? And is there anything that we can provide that helps to speak to that, whether they've asked it very well or not? What are the things, well, and I guess that boils down to, what do people need to know?
Yeah.
And what do they have a right to know?
Yeah.
And have we answered most of those things, but not gone further than that?
That's so great. I can see that. I'm just thinking of, we're all probably on this podcast thinking of things where we go, yeah, if we would have done this or asked this question, that could have turned out differently.
It could.
And so that's a great tip, Cheryl, is just have some empathy, be able to kind of think about, what can I gather information-wise to understand the situation better?
Also, here's a little shortcut. If you watch Reddit, for better and worse, it tends to be the lightning rod for people who have a bone to pick.
Okay.
They'll go there. And it is a source that AI and the search engines go to.
Oh.
So to get the cleanest possible look at what could people construe from this and what's the worst that is being said, that's probably bingo.
Be checking Reddit.
Look
I like
there.
that. Very good. Well, Cheryl, we really appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you.
It's been a real enjoyable conversation and some really interesting and insightful information on crisis communication. So thank you. I'm going to give you the last word or just a thought or two that you can leave our audience with. So if you have any kind of final thoughts or tips on crisis communications, that would be awesome.
Be prepared, be kind, and always do your best. And think about 5 days from now, 5 years from now, how important will this be? And what will I want the outcome to have been that I can look back on and smile or show that I've surmounted it?
That's great. Well, thank you for joining us on the Strategic Risk Mind podcast. And we really enjoyed this time. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.